That's going to equal $45,000. That's what we want. That's our annual rent, $45,000. We're going to divide that by 12, $3,700 a month. $3,700 a month is what you want to pay in rent to sustain a business that's doing. Hello, Chef Marcus Guiliano here, and I'm your chef on a mission. Today's mission is business, and the business is rent. How much rent should your restaurant be paying? And I've outlined that out, and I believe it's in, I've talked about this a lot on videos, and I've even talked about it in my 50 mistakes that business owners make. Your rent payment is super important. I see a lot of people that just overpay for their rent, or they don't have a long enough lease, and restaurants are the number one reason, restaurants are the largest failure rate industry going out there, 90%, 90+% after 5 years. Our history and toast. And a lot of them just hold on just so their lease is done, so they're not penalized because they probably signed a personal guarantee with the landlord and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, they just want to hold out, and they're still losing money, by the way. They're still losing money at the end of their 5-year lease, 3-year lease, whatever, how many ever terms you lease. But we're talking about how long your lease should be in this video, and I'm going to talk about your percentage and how to negotiate with your prospective landlord, and even renegotiate with your current landlord. So the last time I helped a client out, I went to look at one of my coaching clients. I went to look at a property with him, and I looked at the realtor, and the realtor was asking some astronomical amount. I thought it was an astronomical amount. My client was like, "Oh, that's cool." I'm like, "No, this is how we're going to do this. We're going to reverse engineer this." I looked at the realtor and said, how much sales did the last restaurant do here?" And he told me, and I said, "Okay, let's say we can do better than that. So let's add on 25%. I go, "Would that be fair to the realtor?" I said to the realtor, "Would that be fair to say that my client can do 25% more than your last client did, than the last restaurant operator?" They go, "Oh, yeah, of course. So we said, okay. So we broke it down. I said to the realtor, "Would you agree the industry standard is 6% of your sales, of your gross sales should go to rent? That's the standard. That's the key number right there, 6%. And he agreed, and he goes, "Yes." I said, "Okay, so let's engineer this now. Let's reverse engineer this. Now, you think, let's add 25% on. Let's hear the sales. Let's divide that or figure out what 6% of that number is." And I go, "Okay, here's what we should be at. We should be at $1,800 or $2,000, and you're asking $4,000. I said, "He's never going to make money here." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way. Let me go negotiate with the owner of the building with this information. No wonder why this building's been sitting here empty." I said, "Don't get me wrong. You will find somebody to pay you full rent or close to full rent. You will find somebody, but you're not going to find a restaurateur that's going to be that successful because the numbers are so skewed here." Now, sometimes that the 6% won't work. In this case was the 6%, you can go a little higher because the whole restaurant was turnkey. The tables were set, the ovens were in place, the walk-in cooler was there. There were spices on the spice rack, okay? Everything was there ready to go besides fresh produce and the food. Everything was literally there. In that case, you can add on a couple points because you have to either buy ovens and that kind of stuff, small wares and things like that. So you can actually say, now sometimes the building owner will ask for key money. Key money is like, "I want 50,000 key money because I have ovens there and things like that." So then, of course, you want to go back down to that 6% because they're asking for money up front with all the stuff that they have there. But in the case of you going in and renovating a place and putting stuff in and buying tables and chairs and silverware and pots and pans and things like that, try to stick that 6%. That's the key. So he went back and he renegotiated with the actual building owner of this new information, and I actually educated the realtor on this as well. So it was kind of like, okay, this is an eye-opener now. Now, if you're in a situation where you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm being choked by rent here," you can actually use this number and go to your landlord. I've known a lot of restaurateurs, people in my mastermind, and some of my clients some of my coaching clients have actually gone back and renegotiated the lease, especially in a downturn of the economy. It makes more sense for the landlord to know, "Hey, I've been there 7 years or 10 years or 3 years. I just need some kind of rent reduction to bring me into that 6% here for a little while and give me a chance to build my revenue as it goes up. And I'll be willing to give you more if I'm doing more in sales. That 6% is key again. And explain that to your landlord. And I've seen people very successfully renegotiate their lease in the middle of their lease to lower their rent payment. Let's face it, landlords don't want empty buildings. That's the most expensive thing out there. Like we know in the restaurant industry, an empty seat is the most expensive thing out there. So now let's break this down and talk about how long your lease should be. So your lease should be 15 years, 20 years. You should have a 5-year lease with a 5-year lease with 2 5-year options or 3 5-year options. The restaurant industry it's very, very seldom that you will make money and pay back your investment in 5 years. That's really not the case. And this is where a lot of restaurants fail because they're at that 5-year lease and their lease is over. And I can tell it's like clockwork. I'll see a restaurant open and close in 5 years. I'm like, yeah, their lease was up. The landlord wants all this astronomical more money now, or they haven't budgeted in 5 more years or 10 more years as far as their break even, payback, and now prosper. So sometimes you don't prosper until you're 7. Ritz-Carlton figured out that it takes 7 years for them to actually break even from a property and then all of a sudden start making money. So in a 5-year lease, that's not going to happen in a lot of cases, folks. I mean, I remember in my personal case, it took me 7, 8 years now. I've been in business 15 years, almost 9 years, where I was like, okay, I got extra money to burn. I got extra money. Let's buy new ovens. Let's buy a new walk-in. Let's buy a catering van. It took me almost 9 years to get to that point of let's now reinvest back into this business heavily. So that's just the reality a lot of times of this. Let's circle back around to your rent. So you can actually go to a landlord and really say, okay, this is my sales number. I think that I'm going to do 40 people a day, and they're going to give me $15 a person, and I'm going to do that 52 weeks a year, 7 days a week, and scale this out, right? And if you come up with a thing like, let's just say an easy number. Let's do 1.25. Actually, let's do 750,000. Let's break this down. So 750,000 right there. 750,000 in sales. Okay. Now we're going to times this by 0.06. That's going to equal 45,000. That's what we want. That's our annual rent. 45,000. We're going to divide that by 12. $3,700 a month. $3,700 a month is what you want to pay in rent to sustain a business that's doing $750,000 in sales. That's all you have to figure out. Go from the bottom base, figure out what your sales are going to be, and go from there. And you can simply say, like we did in the case of this one realtor, what was a previous restaurateur's revenue? What do they gross every year? Okay, and let's just add 25% on, or just do say gross, one for one. Let's say, okay, they did $1 million. Well, $1 million, that's $5,000 a month, and you're asking for $6,500. I think that's kind of steep, and that's a recipe. That's not a recipe for success. Is how you can exactly put that. No pun intended. So hopefully that helps you either renegotiate your lease, get a new lease, or a new restaurateur going into it, or give you some insight if you ever go into this business about how much you're spending. 6% is the key number. 6% of your overall gross sales. I'm Chef Marcus Guiliano. Hopefully that was a help. If you have any questions, follow my website down below. You can also get my book. If you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you're getting this information from, there should be a link around to actually get this book for free. 50 mistakes that business owners make. There's all kinds of neat stuff in there. Mistakes that I made. My lease was not one of the ones that I made, believe it or not. I negotiated a great lease. I negotiated a 5-year because I had known this information already about a long-term lease. I negotiated for 15 years out, and I even negotiated within the first 5 years to purchase my building. And once I purchased my building, my payments have dropped by half, and my building's almost paid for. Another couple years, and my building is paid for. So that was one of the mistakes I did not make. So that's it. Hope that helped.